So that's how you ended up in the
Exactly.
judiciary,
In
because
the
the
judicial.
attorney general, only one woman. So you
Exactly.
had to go to
Who
the
was
person
already there? Exactly.
who was already there. And you started as the first as a judicial secretary, I think.
No.
No,
I
you
ended
ended
up
up.
as a judicial secretary. Yes, I started off as a magistrate class 1, then promoted to senior magistrate, promoted to principal magistrate, then promoted to master of the Supreme Court, which was more of an administrative job. But sometimes you do some cases like a judge in chambers when you're master of the Supreme Court. And then you keep the role of the barristers, so that, and also for those who will be doing pro bono cases, you are the one who will assign the lawyers who are going to deal with those cases. So that was when I was master of the Supreme Court. And then I went into private practice for about 4 years. And during that period also, I served in the Commission of Inquiry into Land Administration, which was quite interesting, because I had not really studied land law as, as such. And as a magistrate, I sort of dealt with both civil and criminal cases and traffic cases, juvenile delinquency. All those cases were the ones I was dealing with. But as I was getting promotion to senior magistrate and principal magistrate, then the role became, if I was the most senior person in that jurisdiction, then I would be the one to also do the administrative duties of ensuring the administration of the court area, as well as assigning of cases to the junior magistrates.
So that's one thing I want to pause there and ask you then, because that you're being promoted, that was by the Chief Justice. You got your promotion. How did your promotions work?
The promotions were that a recommendation would be sent to the Judicial Service Commission, and it is the Judicial Service Commission that will do the recommendations to the Chief Justice as to who was suitable amongst the candidates. But in those days, we had very few lawyers, male and female alike. The Gambia in those days, they had very few lawyers. But it's now that you have so many lawyers, and in fact, when I came, I was the second female lawyer in the Gambia. The one who is now the Speaker of the Parliament, she was the first lawyer to arrive.
So it was actually not a good thing that you were second, because it would have been nice to have more women, but it actually was to your benefit, because the skills you have got recognized. The Judicial Commission recognized that, and the Chief Justice recognized it. You're getting along with your male colleagues, because they were all male. Was there, you mentioned what it was like sometimes for the litigants when they walked in and they were surprised to see you. How was it dealing with all male magistrates?
Some of them were quite helpful. Like my first boss, he's now late, but he was very useful, very kind, because when you study law, when you then come on the bench, it's completely different. It's, you actually have to start learning the law again in order to practice whatever is in that country. And he was very helpful on suggestions, case law that I should keep in mind, and so forth. I think when I got junior male lawyer magistrates, those were a bit more difficult, because how can they be supervised by a woman, kind of stuff. But we still had to get along, and the work had to be done, and it was done. Thank God.
And that also is a lesson. You mentioned the judge who helped you, who gave you ideas, who supported you. So when women are looking for mentors and supporters, now of course there are more women that can help
Exactly.
women, but you have to work with, you have to develop those relationships. Why don't you share with us how you were able to develop those positive relationships, realizing not everybody felt positive, but how did you approach it?
Um, by being honest, if there was something that I did not understand, I would actually approach the senior magistrate then, and then ask, how would he deal with a case like this? And then he would give me examples or suggestions, but then I would go back and do my own research and then come up with my own decision on the matter. The other one also was the lawyers. When they court cases before me, I would say, okay, please bring a copy of because in those days we didn't have we didn't have internet and all that, where you could just go and find case law and so forth. So it used to be very difficult to get copies of judgments and so forth. So I would ask them to produce the copies, and they would produce them. And I think it was also helpful, because then they trusted my judgment when I made it, because I was actually quoting the law. I would not just, I'll deal with what the witnesses said, and then use that, the evidence and so forth, and then use that to show that if there was some case law available, I would show why that case was relevant if it had been quoted by one of the lawyers, or to dissent from it and show why it wasn't relevant to the case before me, because of either what the witnesses said or for some other reason.
So that
And
honesty and integrity, the
yes,
lawyers began to rely on you, and so they began to trust you. You said that you did 4 years then in private practice, but then you came back to the judiciary, didn't you? Was that when you had the Court of Appeals assignment?
No. That's when I came back as judicial secretary. Judicial secretary is senior to the master. You are dealing with the administrative issues, but in this case, the constitution had been changed in 1997. And that was where the post of judicial secretary was created, so that this actually gave the independence to the Gambian judiciary. In the past, it was the Attorney General's Chambers and Ministry of Justice that used to deal with the accounts of the judiciary. We were only recipients. But after the constitution was changed in 1997, then the judicial independence came in. The judiciary had our own budget, our own funding. So in fact, we had to prepare our own accounts and send them. And when we get the funding, we were able to spend it without having to refer to the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And that was how the Supreme Court building, the High Court building now, that was how it was built during the time that I was there.
Yeah, that was quite a heavy responsibility, and that independence was crucial to the judiciary. There are still some countries in Africa where the budget comes from the, rests with the Attorney General or some other entity, and it's not good for the judiciary when that happens. The judiciary needs that kind of independence. And that was quite a responsibility that you had. Was it after or was it after the master's position that you then went to the Court of Appeals? I just want to make sure I have the
Not yet, not
sequence
yet.
right. All right,
Not
not
yet.
yet.
I went to UN International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda first.
Okay, so then now let's
Because on
turn
my
to,
return, yes.
right, okay, so let's turn now to your international judging career.
That's right.
You had gotten your LLM in the international area. And so
Yeah.
how did you then make that transition? I know that Gambia had to nominate you, but why did you have an interest
No,
in
no,
international?
not yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Not yet. What happened was that I was in 1999, I was advised to apply for a post with the UN International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and they were looking for a deputy registrar. I applied and was shortlisted, interviewed, but for some reason I did not get the post of deputy registrar. So I forgot all about it when I was told I had not got it. But then they called me back and said, although you didn't get the post of deputy registrar, they had an open post of P4 legal officer that was available if I was interested. It was in the court management section. And because of my work in the judiciary of the Gambia, I obviously qualified for that. So I went to see the UNDP res rep who had given me the application in the first place. And I said, you know, what do you think? I mean, I had applied for a deputy registrar. Should I accept such a low post, you know, P4 level? She said, no, it's not a low post. The P4 level is quite a high post, you know, so you should accept it. She told me, in fact, if you see my deputy res rep here, is a P3. So I said, oh, okay. So I went back and I said, okay, I'll accept it. And then I accepted it and went to Arusha, and I was there for 10 years and 3 months.
And let me just stop you there. You probably
yes.
don't know this, that I taught at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in Arusha for 3 years with prosecutors. I don't think we ever met, did we?
Wow.
When you, because we were there at the same time. When
I
saw
know
you had been there, I was just, that's really for 10 years.
Very,
That was,
yes, but you know, the prosecution and the registry, we were sort of like we were not supposed to be mixing.
right, I know. So I never got to
the
meet.
registry.
Never got to meet.
Yeah, because the registry was supposed to be independent and you know, we were supposed to treat the prosecution and the defense on equal terms. So actually, when the prosecution had their own training, we were not included, and when the registry had our own training, we did not include the prosecution. But I believe that we met in the US.
In the US, okay.
National
Your
Association
name was
of
so
Women
familiar.
Judges.
Yes, I think that's
Yes,
right. At the
you know,
International
because I
Association.
attended, I think 2011 and 2012, I attended one of the meetings in New York and then another one in Maryland.
Right.
And I'm sure we met at either of those places.
I think
And
you're
also
right.
there was an International Association of Women Judges roundtable that I attended, and I believe you attended that one too.
I did.
Yeah.
I have a very
So
good memory.
I was quite sure we had met.
I just wasn't sure where. So you did 10 years there, and you did 10 years there in that position. And then what was your next position internationally?
Yeah, it was, I did eight years in Arusha and 2 years in The Hague. In The Hague, I was the head of the Appeals Chamber Support Unit for ICTR. You know, the Appeals Chamber in The Hague was both ICTR and ICTY. So they had a separate registry for the ICTR. So that was what I was doing. I was heading that unit. And then
And that,
afterwards, it was
just let me just
whilst I
stop
was there.
1 second, just for those listening. So ICTR, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, dealt with the genocide that took place in Rwanda. I just, in case people didn't
That's right.
know, but
And
go ahead.
Why is the one that dealt with the genocide that happened in the former Yugoslavia.
Correct.
Yes. So it was whilst I was there that I found out about this LLM at Leiden University. So I decided to join it. I asked I requested that I be allowed to attend lectures, and I was told, no, we employed you with your barrister's qualifications, and as far as they were concerned, that was okay. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll take my annual leave days and be deducting them to enable me to go to lectures, and that's how I did it. And I attended, and but before I finished, then I was transferred back to Arusha. But fortunately, by that time, one could send their essays back by email. And so I was able to complete my course and do my dissertation. It was when I was doing my dissertation that I was allowed to take the 10 days that are usually allocated to staff if you are doing a course. And I was able to study and finish my dissertation and got my LLM.
And then your passion for international, why do you think it was so important to have an African presence in that international environment? What, because that obviously was a passion of yours. You gave up your vacation days to get that LLM. You had to. Why was that so important to you?
I felt that it was important if I had to move on. It was important that I got an LLM, but they felt that since I had done the bar finals and got the barrister's qualification, that was equivalent to an LLM. But I wanted to do the LLM because it was an LLM in public international law with an international criminal law specialization. So it was really specific. And I was quite interested. And when I did my thesis also, it was on freedom of speech. And I have always been interested in freedom of speech. And I felt I really needed to talk about it, find out more about it. So in fact, in my thesis, I was quoting, some of the cases that was happening in the Gambia and in Zimbabwe also, and in some other African countries, and part of the diaspora.
So that international work also became a passion. International, yes. Not just limited to
exactly.
Gambia or Zimbabwe.
Exactly.
So,
and it
go ahead.
It was whilst I was at the ICTR, the appeals chamber, that I was nominated by the Gambia government to join. No, it was not. It was when I had gone back to Arusha that I was nominated by the Gambia government to be one of the judges for the vacant position of ICC judge in 2008, 2009. And that was also a very interesting experience because I went for the interviews with the state parties in The Hague, and also in New York. And I also went for the elections. I didn't make it, but it was, I at least managed to pass through several stages before I failed. And then, but it was quite interesting.
And then what did you do next?
Then in 2009, September, that was when after 10 years and 3 months, I decided to go back to the Gambia. By that time, the UNICTR was reducing staff because of the fact that they were closing down. So and then they started saying we could be given 3 months contracts and so forth. And I didn't think I was interested in having 3 months contracts. As a family woman, I decided I was better off going back home, which I did. I came home, and that was when after about 6 months or so, I was appointed as a judge in the Gambia Court of Appeal by
And
the Judicial Service Commission.
And you mentioned, because that was the next area I wanted to focus on, your family, because I know your husband at one time was an ambassador to the US.
That's right.
And so often there's a challenge that men face and women face in balancing career and family. Why don't you share with us why you were so successful in doing that? How is it you were so successful?
I'm not quite sure that I was successful. In fact, I keep thinking that, maybe my children, none of them studied law. In fact, my daughter told me outright, "Mommy, I'm not going to study law because you were never there for us." Because even as a magistrate, you have cases that you have to write judgment, do research, in the night when you come back home. And when I was with the tribunal, my husband was ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and then to the European Union. And during that period, only one child agreed to stay with me in Arusha for 1 year. And then when the others moved to the European Union, she also went. So I ended up being alone in Arusha. But fortunately, I managed to get my mother to come and stay with me. So at least I had somebody. And all the children, they will only come during school holidays and with my husband. So it's very, very difficult. It's not easy. The children grow up and you barely know them because they are not with you most of the time. I mean, it was bad enough when I was here because you obviously go to work and leave them with the house help and so forth. But when you are worlds apart, it was very, very difficult. In fact, my daughter was told when my husband was in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, one of her teachers told her, female teachers told her that your mother is not a good woman. She should not be following a profession. She should be with her husband. Yes, she was told that,
Yeah, so it was, I guess
easy.
I chose the wrong word to say successful because I think I'm a mother too. And I don't know if we're ever successful because there is that difficult balance of career and children. But clearly they wanted to be, because of the demands on your schedule with your husband. So there was good things going on within the family. You had a spouse that supported the kids, right? That was there for the kids, even though I understand he was busy too.
That's right. Thank God for that. Although I cannot say it was all bad in that with my job at the UNICTR, I had this education grant. So I was also able to get my children into very good schools and good universities. So on one hand, there was also that, you can call that a successful achievement. But then the not being there for them was not so
Not
good.
easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not easy. And there are always trade-offs, but you also were struck with a tragedy, because I was reading an article about the loss of your wonderful son.
Yes, that was in 2010. It was an unfortunate traffic accident, and he was in a taxi in the back seat behind the driver, and one normally thinks that's the safest place to be, behind the driver, but for some reason, it was the taxi hit a pole, and it was where he was sitting, and
Yeah.
he was the only one who passed away, and he had just turned 21. And my husband was already in the US, and we were supposed to join him so that we could go for the for him to present his letters of credence to President Obama. So my late son unfortunately missed that.
Yeah, I
We
saw that
actually, yeah,
beautiful picture of you with President Obama, and I am so sorry for your loss.
yeah, thank
And I wondered, because your family did survive that loss. And many of us have, not many of us lose our children. I think that is the worst. But
you.
can you tell us how you were able to move forward, having lost your son? What lessons can we learn of how to keep pushing forward?
Yeah, in fact, what happened was that my mom passed away in March, and 3 months later in June, my son passed away. So that was when I was a judge in the Gambia Court of Appeal, and that was just so devastating. I took a month off, went and joined my husband in the US, and then came back and finished the 1 year, because I had just been appointed in January, as a judge of the Gambia Court of Appeal. In fact, I was able to be assigned on the Gambia Supreme Court, which used to sit in session. And that was the November session that I was able to sit on. But after the 1 year was up in January, I decided, and then you see all the children were again with my husband, and I was the only one here. In the end, I thought to myself, I've done this at ICTR, I've had enough. And I think it was good that I just took that break. Because, sometimes it's good, it's good to just call it a day. So I took a year off, went to the US, joined my husband, and that was when I joined the International Association of Women Judges. So
I see.
it had its own,
Right.
advantages. And then that was when I was told about the international residual mechanism, that they were looking for nominations. So I sent my name in to the UN office, the Gambia UN, Gambia representative at the UN, the Gambia's ambassador to the UN, and I sent my CV and everything, and the process went through, and this time I didn't have any problem getting through, and I was one of the 25 judges who were elected. So in a way, things, although we had come from a tragedy and I had left my job, I went to the US, I couldn't find a job. And I as a lawyer, it's not easy to get legal jobs when you have not studied in the US. Yeah,
True.
that's what I realized. So I did 3 months at the International Law Institute, International Legal Institute, but it as a research officer, but I couldn't continue with that, so I had to leave. But it was good in that I then joined the diplomatic community, in that they have this, what is called THIS for diplomats, which helps spouses of diplomats to be occupied during the time that the diplomats are occupied elsewhere. So I joined the English group and the French group. And it was quite interesting. We used to meet at each other's houses, and then somebody will do some cooking or some other program, and then we'll be speaking in English or we'll be speaking in French. And it was quite interesting. And then also we had an association of African ambassador spouses, which was also quite interesting. We also used to meet once a month at each other's houses, and then you'll cook the national traditional food of your country, and everyone will come and join you on that day. So it became more of, I became more of a social person, and I think that is what also helped me to sort of get relief from the stress. And then I joined what is called MADD, M-A-D-D, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I used to join, go to for their meetings, or if they are doing a sponsored walk, I would help them to do that. And I also did sponsored walk for breast cancer 3 times, I think. I did 2 in Washington, D.C., 2012 and 2013, and 1 in New York. So it was quite interesting because it's quite a long walk. And I used to do the training by walking to Home Depot and back. But then sometimes if I go to Home Depot, I like plants. So by the time I'm coming back, I'll have bought too many things, so I'll have to get a taxi to come back. But it was quite interesting.
And
you know, I enjoyed my stay in the US, and by keeping myself busy.
And it also shows, you know, your human side, because people often think because we wear a robe or a wig that we're machines, that we are not women, that we are not human beings with heart, and that we can't, and so these things that you did, because you've always cared about people and you've cared about justice and how people are treated in the system, and you are just who you are. You know, the robe was not everything to you. So it is like my father used to say, don't let the robe get in the way of your humanity, because you're a human being first. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that totally. I also joined the Tahiriyah Justice Center, and they help women who come in and have immigration issues, you know. So I also used to just do some voluntary work with them, and I still, you know, receive their emails and so forth. So I'm still in touch with MAD and the Tahiriyah Justice Center.
And with the so many blessings you've received, my sense is that you are also the kind of woman that feels with those blessings come responsibilities to others.
The fact that you grew up in a rural setting does not limit where you can go.